Hey everybody, welcome to episode 15 of Project Geekology. We have just exited hyperspace into this new episode. And as always, I'm one half your host, Anthony, and joining me as always is
Dakota.
And we have a yes
guest appearance
Dakota
by Grogu.
and Grogu.
I recently learned to speak.
We're joined by Jenn. Welcome.
Hi.
You are actually going to be on not just this episode, but the next episode as well, because behind the scenes information right here, we're recording 2 episodes back to back. So we have today's episode, which is all about Mandalorian Season 2, and the next episode will be discussion of The Last Airbender, Avatar The Last Airbender. We discussed that before a long time ago in one of our early episodes, but now we're actually going to be talking spoilers, so hopefully you guys have catched up with Avatar The Last Airbender, because we're excited to finally do a spoiler discussion. It's been a long time coming with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we've been meaning to get that out to you for a while now. And before we jump into our discussion of The Mandalorian Season 2, which will be spoiler-filled, just to let you know, I wanted to talk about last week's episode, the Kingdom Hearts episode. I know that a lot of you had listened, and at the end of the episode, it cut off, and it was like an unnatural cutoff. Yes, our episode did get cut off at the end, but we did get that fixed. So for those of you that do download the episodes, you'll have to re-download that episode. And for those of you that just stream it, you can just go back and check it out, and you'll see that there's additional time added to it. And it is the complete episode. So I just wanted to let you all know that if you wanted to go back and check out the end of that episode. And so with saying that, Dakota, what have you been up to this week?
Not a whole lot, to be honest with you. I mean, we did just finish Cobra Kai Season 3, which, Anthony, I think you enjoyed a little more than we did. Or at least I did. Did you like it, Jenn?
It's hard to enjoy things when you have Dakota next to you going, this is so unrealistic, and oh my god. So, yeah, I might have enjoyed it more if I was alone.
Oh, sorry.
You goon. It's
well,
like...
You married me, so... but no, I did enjoy it. I think it was actually a strong season, but I don't think it was the strongest season we've had yet. We'll talk about Cobra Kai in a standalone episode, hopefully soon, because we have a few other episodes planned that we want to get to before talking Cobra Kai. But Anthony, you liked it, right?
Yes, I did. I think that I really just don't have a problem with the suspension of disbelief. Yeah, I know that there is a lot of ridiculousness, and there were a bit too many flashbacks, maybe. That might be one of my gripes. There's a little bit too many flashbacks, and one of the flashbacks in the season, it was a little too long.
Okay.
The Chosen and Daniel fight, that was a really long flashback.
Okay.
I would have been like, just go fair, watch that.
We hadn't seen...
Yeah, we never saw that movie.
We never saw it, so it wasn't a long flashback for us, because it was all new footage for us.
Yeah, we didn't know anything about that. And then when the little girl that they saved came back, we were like, oh, that's so cute. He saved a girl.
We got to go back and rewatch that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I thought I enjoyed that. Actually, that was like probably one of my favorite parts of the season, because I really did enjoy the second movie.
Yeah, I didn't mind that part of the season, actually. I enjoyed it quite a bit. We'll have to, Jen and I will have to go and rewatch. Mm-hmm. Or watch for the first time. I don't think I've ever watched the second Karate Kid, and you definitely haven't.
Yeah, I haven't. Because I only watched the first one for this.
What else have we been up to this past week?
So there's this Irish show that I've been really into. It's called Dairy Girls. And it's really crass, just throwing that out there.
Yeah,
because Irish people curse like a ton. But I'm obsessed with it. Like, I'm so into it right now.
Yeah, we've probably watched through the entire series, both seasons, twice now.
I've watched it 3 times.
She's watched it 3 times. It's actually it's one of the best written shows I've seen in a long time. It's a comedy about a bunch of girls from Ireland in their high school years during the 90s. So that was still like when the Protestants and the Catholics were going at each other.
Why does that sound familiar? Like, I feel like I've seen that before.
Dairy Girls?
It's on Netflix.
I feel like I've seen a bit of it before because that sounds familiar.
It is
you gotta watch
insanely
it.
funny.
It is the funniest thing ever. And what's even better is we got her family to watch it, and I've never seen them sit down for 4 straight hours because they watched the entire show with us.
My family are the type that if you go to show them something, like even something like a YouTube video, they'll start looking at their phones. Like my mom will be super rude. She'll just like play TikToks while you're showing her something. Like she does not care.
What's so good about Dairy Girls is it's actually funny, but it's interesting. And because of their accents, you kind of have to use subtitles. So that kind of makes it impossible for you to look at your phone while doing all that. So anyway.
It was a miracle. Like I've never seen them sit like that.
So
They probably use slang too.
Oh yeah. A lot
totally.
of Irish slang. So I've started picking up on the Irish slang.
Yeah.
And now I'm using it.
Yeah. Anyway, Dairy Girls, highly recommend it. It is crass,
super crass.
but it's part of their vernacular, so it's a little bit different for them. But yeah, for Americans, it might be a little much. Other than that, I haven't been actually doing too much because I've been really busy with my most recent video, which was a discussion of Batman Begins and how that kind of shaped all the superhero movies that came after the fact. It's out on Geekritique on our YouTube channel, and I really like it. I think it's a really good video. I hope you guys like it. Because I was working on that for so long, I didn't get to do too much, but after that, you and I both started reading the new Star Wars book, Light of the Jedi, which is the first of the High Republic books that they've released. So, if for those who don't know, the High Republic is a time period that we've never explored in the Star Wars universe before. It's about 200 years before the prequels. So, it's a whole new array of Jedi Knights and stuff. So,
yeah, it's not to be confused with the Old Republic.
Right, Old Republic is
way before that.
Way before, and there aren't any canon titles currently in the Old Republic series, but I feel like we're going to get that eventually. As of right now, High Republic, we're about like between 8 to 10 chapters into it. Chapters are kind of short, so there's a lot of them. Nothing has really happened as of this point. They're just setting up the story, and we're enjoying it so far. But I thought that was kind of an important thing to touch on in our Mandalorian episode, because we're going to be talking about at least 2 Jedi today.
Yes.
So, Anthony, before we get into Mandalorian, what have you been up to this past week? I know you also watch Cobra Kai, but what else have you been up to?
I finally sat down and started watching The Queen's Gambit.
Oh, fun.
And I'm on episode 6 now. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting show. There are some points that I will say that it kind of lulls out a little bit, but it does keep you interested, and I think it's pretty cool because it's a period piece, but it's not based on anybody like real.
Yeah.
So
actually, speaking of that, Jenn has a theory because she worked underneath someone who she believes the movie is based on.
Well,
briefly.
yeah, I used to work for this woman at it, like, well, I don't want to say too much information because then they'll know like where I live. But basically, I used to work for a woman that her name was Lisa Hickey, and at the time her name was Lisa Lane, and she was actually like not like a chess champion of the world, but I think she was a chess champion.
Yeah,
like
she was a
60s.
grandmaster.
Yeah, she was a grandmaster in like the 60s. And there was like a famous, I don't know chess that much, but there was like a famous chess dude that basically said like she was equal to the men, and it was kind of a big deal. She was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and I saw some interesting parallels. Like even the way that Beth Harmon's hair is in the movie was very similar to Lisa's. So there were a lot of like little things. And I read online, like some people speculated that it might have been about Lisa, but nobody really knows for sure. And of course, like the author isn't going to say, oh yeah, I based it on this person. But like the time period and the personality even kind of lines up, because Lisa was super eccentric and a bit very bossy. Very bossy. That's why I'm no longer working with her. But she's cool though. She's a really interesting person.
Did you like the series, Anthony? Like, it's clearly fictional, yeah.
No, yeah, I think it's great, and I think that the actress does a great job. I mean, I've seen her in a few things, namely Split and Glass, you get to see a bit more of her in Split, and so you get to see her acting a little bit more in that. I think it's cool with what character that she has in The Queen's Gambit and how she perceives chess and the way that she plays that out in her mind, and that she remembers the games and she plays them all out in her mind, and that she'll remember how the games played out and she'll play them even on the boards. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. I can't even play out like a 5-second or like a 10-minute Overwatch match. Like,
yeah. I haven't watched it yet. Jen has.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, yeah,
I haven't actually watched Queen's Gambit, but I've heard enough about it, especially from you. That's why you enjoyed it so much, because I wasn't watching it with you. I gotta watch that. Anything else that you've been up to this?
So I decided to take the dive and check out the next Karate Kid, the one with Hilary Swank in it.
Oh, it's on Netflix.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. So it's not.
Wait, what is it?
It's
called The
Mr.
Next
Miyagi,
Karate Kid.
Hilary
Yeah,
Swank.
there's a fourth Karate Kid movie, and it has Hilary Swank in it.
She's a Boston girl.
With Mr. Miyagi?
Yeah.
Yes.
With Pat Morita?
It has Pat Morita in it. Yes.
What?
And it's all right. It's it's obviously like nothing like the original trilogy, but I will say that it's always great to see Pat Morita as Mr. Miyagi. And like the only parts in that film that were like my favorite parts were the parts that had Mr. Miyagi in it, and it was, oh my gosh, it's so funny. They go to like this like monk temple, and Mr. Miyagi takes these monks out to go bowling. And they're bowling, but like with their eyes closed, and they're like, why are they doing that? It's like Mr. Miyagi is like, it's called Zen bowling. It's like Pat Morita.
Well, he was originally a comedian.
Yes. So like,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I went down that rabbit hole after watching that, and I did not realize that Pat Morita was a stand-up comic. And I actually watched some of his stand-up comedy, and it's actually pretty funny. And his voice is off-putting.
So his voice isn't the same as
is off-putting. Yeah, it's like very just like, like, hey, I don't know, like it's like very, very American, and
okay,
it
very
kind of
American shatters your image of Pat Morita a little bit. That's funny.
It does, but it's funny though. It's cool. It's cool seeing like kind of like that other side of him. So it was interesting, kind of going down that rabbit hole after seeing that movie. So right, I did a lot.
We should start talking about Mandalorian at this point.
Yes.
I don't think we should talk necessarily episode by episode, because that could take forever, like it did last time. We were talking for 2 hours about season 1, but I do think that we should talk about some of the bigger themes. We should talk about some of the bigger episodes specifically that we enjoyed, and some of the bigger revelations that we appreciated or didn't appreciate. I don't know where we all stand on certain things. What are your thoughts, Jen, on season 2 of The Mandalorian?
See, I loved it. It gave me purpose in life. Like, Fridays was all I lived for every week. And now tomorrow's Friday and I have to go to work, and it's just going to be god awful without The Mandalorian. I thought it was cute. It was wholesome. The plot kept moving forward. There was a lot of ties to Star Wars overall. A lot of the like cinematography was just like really cool. They didn't try to just like butter you up with different character appearances. There were other interesting facets to make it just overall good storytelling, which I loved.
I think a lot of people were put off by the fact that they included so many legacy characters from other shows or films. But I don't think that it was so unnecessary that it ruined any of the episodes that Mando and Grogu appeared in, basically. Anthony, what do you think about that? Do you feel like the inclusion of some of these characters that don't necessarily immediately pertain to the Mandalorian's world or whatever were like necessary inclusions, or do you feel that they were there just as like callbacks to fans that want to see those characters again?
I don't think that they were there at all as a callback. I think that they were there for a necessary reason. I do think that it was obviously fan service, but it was fan service done in the right way. Like, it wasn't fan service for the sake of fan service. It actually serves a purpose.
It wasn't like we saw the Millennium Falcon fly over the Navarro city or anything like that. We didn't, by the way. It was just stuff like like seeing Boba Fett again or whatever that served a purpose to the overall plot. It wasn't just like a one and done sort of thing.
Right. It wasn't kind of like a groaning, like, oh, I can't believe that they did this. It was more along the lines like, oh wow, they actually expanded upon that character, and it was really cool. And I enjoyed seeing some of the returning characters too from season 1.
Jen, how do you feel that this season compared with the first season?
Well, I think it was quite a bit different in a way. Just because you're starting to tie it more to the grander picture of what's going on in the galaxy. Mm-hmm. So when you start making all of these connections, you start really paying more attention to where it is in the timeline. Okay. At least for me, it didn't feel so far off, that it could have taken place almost anywhere. I think with the first season, everyone was like, when does this take place? But now it's like, oh, okay, we all know, like that's been cemented. Like, okay, here it is. This is this part of Star Wars. Right. And I think this season did that well in terms of like placing it like on the timeline correctly, or at least to a point where your average viewer can understand, oh, okay, these characters exist, so it must be after the original movies. The fact that, obviously, spoiler alert, Luke Skywalker shows up, he's in full Jedi mode by the final episode in chapter 16. That shows us that, oh, this clearly can't be literally Baby Yoda, because Yoda died before Luke Skywalker got to this point, and stuff like that. So, because there were still people who like thought Baby Yoda or Grogu were literally a baby version of Yoda, but those are the normies of the ones that are watching that. But I mean, that's what was cool about the first season, was that it was getting people who weren't at all into Star Wars. That's why I think it's fine if people were calling him Baby Yoda and actually thinking it. It's like, you know what? If this is your introduction, if this is your gateway to Star Wars, then by all means, puff away. So do you, would you say that season 2 is better than season 1? If you were to go back and watch one season, what would be the one that you feel like you would go back to watching? I don't know. I like them both. Is that... No, that's right? Not wrong. I don't think I can say... why do I have to pick? I mean, like, they're different, and that's what makes it harder. I think starting next season is when it'll start to be like, okay, am I going to miss that connection between Din Djarin and Grogu? That's when, because it's still very similar. I think this was a little more serialized than the first season. Right, yeah. Which is quite different. I like episodic stuff too, so I don't know. Yeah, but so... a lot of people like serialized more. Right. Anthony, where do you land on that? Like, what do you feel? Was this a stronger season, or was it kind of just on par with what we've already seen? So, what I enjoyed about the first season, it was kind of like comic books, in the sense that, you know how comic books, they'll do something where, they'll release a comic, or they'll release a story for a comic book hero, like a new number 1 to kind of like refresh the story and have like a point where new people or new fans can kind of jump on, or like a new jumping onto point. That first season kind of was like the same for me, except in the sense that it's like, oh, okay, this is a new show. Oh, you know what? Star Wars might not be as geeky as it seems, and it might. I know people who never really watched Star Wars until they seen The Mandalorian, and then they jumped on to the rest of the movies. They went to go check out the movies. I even told them about the animated series and then the books. So
it was like a new launching pad to create new fans of the series. And I think that first season did such a great job of hooking people in that when this second season came around, for me, the second season was a lot stronger for those of us who understood those legacy characters.
Right, who've been in it for the long haul, you know?
Yeah, who've been in it for a long time. Not discounting the newer fans, but for me, there was a deeper connection to the Ahsoka episode because I've spoken about the Clone Wars so much. That's one of my favorite animated shows, and Ahsoka is a big part of that. So seeing her in live action meant so much to me because I had seen this character in the animated series. So
you've seen her grow up.
Right. So finally seeing her in live action and done right in my mind, I thought she was done right. I thought that Rosario Dawson did a great job at playing a live action Ahsoka. I would say that the season is really strong, especially for those of us that have been here not since the beginning, but for a long time. For me, since I was a kid.
Yeah, and jumping onto that point that you made about how some people have been watching the series for, and it's their first introduction to Star Wars, and that being the gateway for them to try other things within Star Wars. Apparently, right after Chapter 13, The Jedi, the one that introduced Ahsoka into live action, the number one show on Disney Plus, besides The Mandalorian, of course, became The Clone Wars, because everyone wanted to know, who is this crazy, awesome Jedi character that I've never heard of? And you had a whole show about her being trained by Anakin Skywalker. And I think that's a fantastic cross-promotion.
Yeah.
This show should be commended for its cross-promotional ability, because not only are people going back to watch a now finished animated series, they can then jump onto the next animated series, Rebels, which continues her story. And then from there, her story finally makes sense. Why she's looking for Thrawn, as she mentions in that episode and stuff. So you start piecing together her story, and eventually that'll culminate in her own live-action television show, which blows my mind that we're getting not just like another live-action television show. We're getting multiple. We're getting like a handful, and they all
that's crazy.
Span off of Mandalorian.
I liked that Ahsoka episode because it was essentially a soft pilot,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It existed to push the story for Din Djarin and Grogu, but also kick off Ahsoka's own series. And you're right, because there are also people who are probably wondering who is Thrawn when Ahsoka had asked, where is Grand Admiral Thrawn? So, that was great cross promotion. I think that episode did a lot for the series because, it brought people to check out more of this character. I think this series also did a great job for expanding existing characters. Just opening so much more on Boba Fett. Not just being... Yeah. Boba Fett... I would say Boba Fett was mostly... Like, the fans of Boba Fett, it's like a cult following. He doesn't really do much.
He's a cool character that people have kind of blown up in their minds as being like this super epic bounty hunter that doesn't actually do all that much besides, helping Darth Vader capture Han Solo. And that's the extent of everything that he's done before this point. And then he got kicked into a Sarlacc pit and presumably died.
I know the way he dies is just like completely like ridiculous. Like it's like Han. I remember like Han's like blind and he like hits his jetpack.
The jetpack, and he's just like
and he's like like, and then the series did so much to expand that, and even in the first season they showed why IG droids are so deadly.
Right.
I mean, because IG-11, I mean, he was pretty like, IG-11 was a beast. So I in this season expands more on it, on how Favreau and Filoni just really respect the source material, and they're not just making the show just to make it. They're making the type of show that they wanted to see, that they want to see, not what they think that somebody else wants to see. Which, I mean, in a way, yes, but I think that they're like, man, I want to make something that's cool. I want to make something that I would want to see, you know, as a big Star Wars fan. I mean, Filoni being somebody that, you know, worked under Lucas and is essentially like the second coming of Lucas, you know.
He's the second coming of Lucas. Yeah. It's true though, because what's great about having Filoni and Jon Favreau together to discuss and work on Star Wars as a, you know, as a whole, as a show, is Jon Favreau has the filmmaking prowess to make the thing that he wants to make, but Filoni has the knowledge to say, well, this makes sense at this time period. These characters exist, and Filoni is kind of guiding him towards making the best possible show that he can, because it fits so well within the narrative that already exists. And vice versa. Like, you have Jon Favreau, who is just like, you know, I played a character in the Clone Wars pre-Vizsla. I want to be able to bring some of those concepts back, like the Darksaber and Bo-Katan. Can we do that? Absolutely. And they do it. You know, they bring Bo-Katan back for the third episode of season 2. And I think she does Katie Sackhoff, she reprises her role as Bo-Katan, and she nails it. Like, it's so cool. It's crazy how she has barely, like, she's barely aged at all, and like some of the other people, like Boba Fett, who's canonically younger than her, have aged worse. But he has gone through a Sarlacc pit, so I mean,
he did. Like, I mean, he got pretty like messed up. Favreau, he kicked off the MCU, so he has that, yeah, like you said, that direct vision. You know, that he has that prowess, you know, for, you know, cinematics. And Filoni is just, yeah, I mean, he's there to, I don't know, just to help shape the vision of what he thinks that George Lucas would want. But I feel like he's executing it better. I feel like he's executing that better. I mean, let's be real.
Better
like,
than, better than Favreau or better than Lucas?
Better than Lucas.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, this is interesting. Okay.
I think that, I mean, that this is a hot take. Okay, we're gonna call it a hot take. Not discounting Lucas at all. I mean, he made this whole universe, and without him, it wouldn't exist.
We wouldn't be talking about it here.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, we can't deny the existence of the prequels, which I don't 100% hate like a lot of people do. I understand why, and I understand, you know, some of the gripes, but there's still something about it that I hold dear to me. I mean, you know, the same thing with the sequel series. Like, you know, they have their problems, even though it's not all green screen like, you know, the prequels. So,
well, Jen, what are your thoughts on the prequels and the sequels? Go ahead.
I actually really like the prequels. I feel like it's the same issue, not the same issue, but it's a similar issue to what the sequels had, where I think the Star Wars fan base has become so demanding, and so their expectations are so high that it's almost like they're impossible to please, as we saw with this season of The Mandalorian. Like, so many people are hating on just like the simplest stuff, like, oh, Ahsoka's mandibles, what are those little things on her head called? Those things aren't big enough, or, you know, like, people are going to get upset over literally at this point anything, to the point that I wonder if this fan base, if they saw the original trilogy after the first movie, if they would have been complaining about this or that, or, you know what I mean? I just think it's like people just will find stuff to complain about, and I think George Lucas let that get to him in the prequels, which made him change his plans drastically as he went along. And I think the editing of that impacted the way that it turned out overall. But
Right. What are your thoughts on the sequels? Do you feel like they are better or worse than the prequels?
The prequels are much better. Come on.
I think the prequels are like a better overall vision, obviously. Because
Yeah, it's just, for me, it's the fact that you had all those different directors. I felt like I spent so much time making my theories for the sequels, and then it's like, I don't know, it was almost like they were.
Yeah, well, I guess.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much for the Mandalorian episode.
Right,
but my overall point is just that, like, I feel like a lot of people are so difficult to please at this point, and then it's a lot of pressure for filmmakers, and I feel really bad for filmmakers in this day and age, because they will literally spend years laboring on a project and get and then everyone will be like, that sucked, and just rip it apart.
Wonder Woman 84 was the worst movie
and it's
ever.
sad. It's like the amount of time that these people spent on this, and they get it's either they get all of the credit or like just ripped to shreds. Like, yeah, it's tough. It's a tough
world out there. It's a tough galaxy.
It's a tough galaxy.
Before like we move on from this, just a thought about the prequels and the sequels. The prequels, I will say that there was a clear vision, but the execution was off. Whereas the sequels, there was a disconnect between the vision. Like, exactly. There was not a clear direction for where these films were going, and that really messed it up. Because I think that they had the tools. I mean, the films looked great. I mean, they looked fantastic. But the story itself was just so back and forth. And I don't think it had anything to do with the characters. I think it had more to do with the lack of
drama, honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
We can do a whole episode on discussing like what worked and didn't work with the prequels and the sequels. But
that'd be like a 10-part series.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll tie it back to Mandalorian this way. So I speaking of, you were talking about Filoni's attention to detail, and I saw this thing online where like Ahsoka's, what are those things called? Her like little antennae.
She's a
tendrils
Togruta,
or something.
So it's not Leku. Leku would be the Twi'lek like things, but I forget. It's like something.
You guys know
like
what we're talking about.
Yeah, her headdress thing, that's part of her skin, whatever it's called.
So that apparently in like one of the like information books that came out about the different characters, it said that like those can help her, the way that she senses things around her, and they actually said like this would enhance her ability to fight in the fog, and they took that and they made that basic concept her introduction in Mandalorian, which I thought was really cool, because it's like you're seeing all of this fog and you're like, well, how is she seeing outside of it? But it's those, I'm not explaining this nearly as articulated as the things that I saw online, but like it's those help her to be able to sense people.
Right. So on top of the fact that she can probably sense them through the Force, she has a heightened sense or awareness of where they are.
Like her race also helps
during the battle. Yeah. So I wonder if it's like her race is more Force sensitive because of stuff like that, because she's not the only Togruta in the Jedi Order. We know Shakti was also of her race. So maybe...
And I think the race of the individual will enhance their Jedi abilities, because we were just reading in this novel, there was somebody else who basically like he has the ability to sense people's emotions, so he was using that in combination with the Force, which I thought was really interesting.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, I just thought that was cool.
Since we're on the topic of Ahsoka, Anthony, you've already said that you thought she was handled very well. Jen, you really appreciate the fact that the little details, thanks to Filoni, because he directed that episode, The Jedi, were upheld. I just want to say that the cinematography in that particular episode were off the chain. Like, I love the parallels between like the old westerns, the old Akira Kurosawa samurai movies. I love the attention to detail in terms of like wanting to get that look right, and also having like a formidable like cast of characters. Like you had several people on the bad side that you could very easily recognize as they're bad, they're good, this is why they're bad, this is why they're good. And I loved the meeting of Ahsoka with Baby Yoda, or as she finally says it is Grogu. You know, she's the one who initiates the fact that, you know, she can kind of have this connection with this creature, if not through actual speech, through some sort of force connection. First of all, that whole little section is probably my favorite part of the entire series, or at least the entire season itself. Her little connection with Grogu through the Force, learning a little bit about him, her talking a little bit about Yoda to Mandalorian, or Mando. As she talks about Yoda, the Yoda theme plays just briefly in the Mandalorian music. It's just like na 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 na, and then it's back to Mandalorian music. I love that. That was really, really cool for me. The way that whole thing was shot, like it was like a dark moonlit night. They were all sitting by the campfire. You know, the scene where she's holding Grogu is just one of the coolest and like most visually stunning things that I've seen in Star Wars recently. I think like when I think of most visually stunning Star Wars moments, I think of like maybe in The Last Jedi when the ship goes through the other ships and they all just like poof, poof, poof. That was a crazy scene. This is also, in a different sense, just a very beautifully crafted moment, and there's a lot of those in not just this whole series, but this particular episode.
Yeah, also, it was very Star Wars.
Yeah, it was very Star Wars, and we learned that there's a lot of little lore details that we learned in this episode, because we also learned that Beskar steel like cannot be penetrated by a lightsaber. I thought that was interesting. Cool.
And it makes sense. It kind of it helps you understand more of why the Mandalorians were formidable against the Jedi.
Right. Yeah. I was doing some research, and they were considered between the Jedi and the Sith. They were like the third galactic power, the Mandalorians, in the galaxy back in the day.
It makes sense. I mean, it's crazy though that they've kind of maintained this narrative, because the whole Mandalorian thing has been around for a long time. I mean, in Legacy, in Legacy Star Wars, the whole thing in the Knights of the Old Republic was that there was that the Mandalorians were they're this formidable force, and there ended up becoming this battle between the Jedi and the Mandalorian, or it was more of like the fallen Jedi, quote unquote. And so that's where Revan and Malak kind of came out of. The Mandalorian, I mean, they're formidable in Legacy, and so they took that and they brought it into this. Or it's been around for a little while now, but I always thought that it was cool that they kept that, And so I'm really hoping that they do explore the Old Republic again, because I mean it really is a cool era, and I know that they are. I just think that they might be trying to find the right people to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I guess for what it's worth right now, their focus is not on the Old Republic. And that's fair. That was a big part of the Legends canon. And now, since the Disney canon, they've been trying to, varying degrees of success to create a new narrative for their canon verse of Star Wars stuff, their Star Wars expanded universe. But as far as Mandalorians going back as far as they have, the idea, the concept, the original look for Mandalorians stems from the very second ever. It might not be the very second ever, but it's a second that I can think of. So there was the 1977 movie Star Wars, and then after that, the guy who wrote the novelization of Star Wars was tasked to write a sequel just in case the movie, the sequel movie was never made. And Alan Dean Foster wrote Splinter of the Mind's Eye. That's the first ever Legends book, and you can still get it. It's not canon by any means. It's not Legends canon. It's not real canon, but it's cool because it's the first spin-off of Star Wars that ever existed. And then we got the Christmas special, or not the Christmas special, the holiday special. That was more like a Thanksgiving thing than anything, but
which they took from they took aspects from the holiday special and they put it into the Mandalorian.
Yeah,
like his rifle.
The Boba Fett, his first appearance was in the holiday special, they used that like little rifle thing that he had in the holiday special and brought it into Mandalorian. So it's all like a big wibbly wobbly timey wimey ball of Star Wars legends and canon.
Wait, who are you talking about?
we were talking about Mandalorians.
Doctor?
We were talking about Mandalorians in general, but I think I lost the plot a little bit. Let's go back. I want to talk about Frog Lady.
Oh, I love her.
Frog Lady.
She's so cute.
Yeah, she reminded me of my grandmother, just the way like she like.
His great grandmother.
My great grandmother is still alive. Amazingly, she's 95. And she doesn't speak a lick of English, and I speak very little Spanish, so I've never actually had a proper conversation with her besides, the pleasantries and I love you and stuff like that. But it reminds me so much of Frog Lady and Mando because he's trying to communicate things to her. She has no idea what he's saying. And the way she like kind of like moves about is very like, almost old lady-ish,
and careful,
and
yeah.
Careful,
she's very careful.
But
that's why when you see her like on all fours, like going for it, it's really like, whoa.
Yeah,
she's scared.
That is one of the best little moments of Mandalorian. It's just like, come on, that's so funny.
She was taking a bath.
The part where she was taking a bath, it was also pretty good.
That was actually a crazy episode. That kind of reminded me of one of the episodes in Rebels where Zeb and Callus, they go into that ice planet.
I forget.
They like
it's been a while since we've seen Rebels.
Yeah,
actually, I do remember what he's talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is that?
I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Is that when Callus first like starts turning?
He kind of like Zeb. Zeb doesn't. I mean, like they're like there's like this like mutual disdain, but then there's also this like realization that they kind of need each other to survive. But then in the end, like Zeb goes with the crew, and he doesn't tell anything about tell anything to that hey, Callus is over there. And then it was crazy, but that episode in The Mandalorian
reminded you of
that planet reminded me of that. And
I thought that was oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
No, that's cool.
I thought it was interesting because we watched that like extra thing on The Mandalorian about like the making of for this season, and I think it was Filoni basically said like it's tough to have a snow planet in Star Wars because you don't want it to feel like Hoth. So they had that whole scene where you're like entering into the planet to feel so different, and that's true that they did use a similar tactic in Rebels, which I hadn't really thought about. The same with those dudes that we saw in Rebels where they're like squids that walk like spiders.
They're spider things. I think they're not the same species, but I think they're like a spin-off of the same concept art that was original like Ralph McQuarrie concept art for Star Wars that wasn't ever used. I don't know if you've gotten to that point in Rebels yet where they have those spider things, Anthony. I think that's later in season 3 and 4. It's not like a real
Were you talking about
thing.
the spider things on that like base that they set up?
Yes.
Yeah.
And how they're kind of similar to the spider things on the ice planet that they have in
Mandalorian. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, but I get what you're talking about. Yeah, there's some like similarities. And it makes sense that there would be similar type creatures and different planets. Some might be more adapted to colder climates, some might be more adapted to warmer climates. Like, I mean, you don't exactly see under the hood, but I mean, there are different types of Jawa. I mean, there's the one at Tatooine, and then there's like the off-world Jawa that have red eyes. So, I mean, it would make sense that there could be, distant cousins or relatives, of each other. So, I mean,
that's a cool thing about Star Wars too. Yeah, like the fact that you can have such a diverse lore, and you can just keep adding to it. You have some idea for a creature or whatever, put it on like a planet you've already been to, and explain like why we've never seen it before because it's in this biome or whatever, or put it on a new planet altogether. And then you can have like different types of the same creature and so on and so forth. Like you said with the Jawa. Anyway, I love Frog Lady. I think she's awesome. I want to see a return to Frog Lady. I want a proper name, but Frog Lady's pretty fun to say. What else? I love the Bo-Katan episode.
Yeah, that was really cool. Seeing more Mandalorian. I think it's cool.
You particularly enjoyed the Mon Calamari with the sweater.
I found that sweater on Amazon, and Dakota thinks it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous purchase. I want it so bad.
So if you guys watch the third episode where they enter that like seaport type set, and they have like the Mon Calamaris. There's one that's just wearing like a green sweater, and it's just like
and
he has
like a little overalls too.
Yeah, overalls and a sweater, and he goes
it's
like
it's very
this.
nautical.
He puts his arms to his side, kind of like Superman, and just kind of like shakes his head like, can't believe I'm doing this.
So when I saw him on the screen, I said to Dakota, I want that sweater. I started immediately looking online for it. I was like obsessed with it, and I was like, I can get the hat, like the, like that type of hat, or not hat, like that type of mask, and then I can cosplay as that. And Dakota's like, no one in a million years will ever recognize that. That's a waste of money. Please stop. Which to his defense, I want something new literally like every freaking day. So it was understandable, his reaction. But then when I found the sweater, the guy who, I think he's like the costume designer, or he played the character or something, he posted the sweater on his Twitter. And so when I looked it up, in the Amazon reviews, it's people dressed as him with the overalls and everything, and they're reviewing it like they're from the planet, and it's freaking hilarious. It made my life.
It is pretty funny. We'll have to find a link and send it to you, Anthony.
Yes.
It's so funny.
I'll die laughing at that. I did like that episode. I thought it was interesting seeing like a nautical, like a seaport. Like you never see that in Star Wars at all. You never see that. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is like the deadliest catch in Star Wars in like one.
Right. Right.
That was crazy.
Of it. Like you can.
And I like
I
like when Mando
diverse and versatility together. Diversatility. I've never.
I literally, as I said it, I was like, I don't think that's a word. I'm just gonna pretend. And see, he always notices stuff like that. He's the worst.
Sorry.
This is why I don't enjoy stuff with you.
Anthony, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
No, I was saying I did enjoy that episode. I did find it pretty funny when Mando drops off his ship to be fixed, and then like at the end. Dude, it's just like all just pretty much patchwork together, and he's like, "That's the best you can do. I gave you 100 credits." And it's just like, just kind of like shrugs.
I forgot about that. I have to rewatch it. For those of you who don't know or haven't been following me on Twitter or whatever, I'm actually going through episode by episode and trying to figure out what the timeline is for the show. Obviously, the episodes are in chronological order, but how much time spans between episodes isn't really clear, because the biggest time jump is probably between chapters 8 and 9, which are like the end of season 1 and the beginning of season 2, because when we finally go back to Navarro, the place with Grief Karga and where we left Cara Dune last and stuff, the town has completely changed. So enough time must have passed between seasons 1 and 2 to be worth looking into, because we've just been under the presumption that this is 9 years after the Battle of Yavin. So I wanted to go into that a little bit, and I'm going to probably make a video on it, maybe like a season 1 and a season 2 video, or maybe I'll do both of them at the same time. I'm not really sure, but that's something I'm like really interested in, like kind of dissecting a little bit, because I don't think I've seen anyone do it yet. So yeah,
it'd be cool.
They put your idea out there.
I know. Yeah, that's true. I do have to do that. Anyway,
Anthony, what was your favorite moment this season?
I have to go with Ahsoka. I mean, she's like one of my favorite characters, especially I don't just like the animated series. I mean, like between the Clone Wars and Rebels, and seeing how she developed from this like really annoying character. Like when she first came about, she was really annoying.
Snips.
Her
Sky
nickname
Guy
in the Clone Wars. But it made sense because she was a kid and she was really immature, but she grows with the audience, and when you get to those later seasons, you really see her growth. And obviously in Rebels, I mean, she's like pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see her in The Mandalorian, all of that experience that she's had over all those years has like culminated into that moment, and like seeing it was like, I mean, like it felt like it felt like one of those animated series episodes. It was structured like one of those. Like the town had an issue, and Ahsoka was seeking out to help the town. And there's a lot of those episodes in Clone Wars and Rebels. So that structure was like it reminded me so much of those shows. And so just seeing that, it was fantastic. Like, I mean, it kind of left me speechless in a way. But that was definitely one of my favorite moments. I mean, I did like the moment at the end with Luke Skywalker. I thought that was really cool.
I think we should rip that episode, the discussion of that episode, off like a band-aid, because we've all kind of been skirting around it a little bit in terms of...
We have other stuff to talk about.
I know. But it's
skirting.
It's the culmination of everything that's come before.
Yeah.
Maybe, all right. You know what? We'll do a brief rundown of some of the episodes that we haven't talked about, and then we'll get to that, because we want to wrap up soon so that we can start our next episode and we don't take all of your time, because you have precious time. We have precious time. All right. So another episode that I want to talk about is the episode where we haven't talked about the first episode where we have the imposter playing Boba Fett in this small town in Tatooine. That was a really cool episode. What do you guys?
That was.
I personally really enjoyed how they brought that all together, and then at the end, kind of showcase that Boba Fett, or Temuera Morrison, who played Jango Fett in the prequels, was back, and he was just like, that's my armor.
Essentially what he said.
Yeah, he didn't say anything, but he thought about it. Yeah. And then later on in the season, right after the Ahsoka Tano episode, we finally got that confirmation that yes, this is Boba Fett. He's been working with Ming-Na Wen's Fennec Shand.
Oh yeah. I actually
cool
really
episode.
enjoyed her character also.
Mm-hmm.
I
didn't like her that much
brought her
first
back.
season, and then this season I was like, oh, sick. Okay.
Yeah, I
because we know how good the actress is, so I was like, in the first season I was like, I feel like she was underused, and then this season I'm like, all right, yeah.
Yeah, they brought her. I
Good.
think the fact that they put her in the first season was one of those like things with same with like Cara Dune. They want to continue using these actors throughout the show.
They had it planned out to bring her back. I think that Filoni and Favreau were like smart enough to be like, we cannot use Ming-Na Wen as a throwaway character, because that would have upset a lot of people.
It's true. What did you think of? Well, actually, I want to talk a little bit about the that episode with Boba Fett fighting off the stormtroopers. Before that, we have Ahsoka telling Mando to bring Grogu to this planet where there's this temple on top where he will communicate with a Jedi. And we all kind of thought it was going to be Luke Skywalker, but we were like, maybe it's going to be someone else. Who knows?
Ezra.
Maybe it'll be Ezra. Maybe it'll be
I saw
Cal
freaking
Kestis.
comments on Instagram of people like, well, I wanted it to be Ezra more than Luke, and it's like,
Oh, who cares? What was Ezra
Gosh.
doing? Why would
A
Ezra?
lot.
can't stand people.
People also wanted to see Mace Windu.
I know. I would have, dude. I would have loved that personally.
Dude, that would have
because-
been crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have been like,
Boba
bro, where
Fett
have you
would've,
been
like,
this whole
had a-
time?
Boba
Would've been
Fett
like-
would have had
It just
another-
makes a lot more sense for Luke Skywalker to show up over
It does.
Ezra, though. It just makes more sense.
It's the most
It's
sensible
like,
thing.
It's not like if it was like there was a logical reason for that, like, oh, well, Ezra was much more likely to be there or something, you know what I mean? Yeah. Then it would have been like, oh, okay, I get where you're coming from. But with this, it's like, but why? Why would they choose Ezra over Luke?
Yeah.
You know?
Could you imagine, like, instead of an X-Wing entering the destroyer or the cruiser, Ezra just comes in on one of those, like, space whales?
I love the space whale.
That would have been
He comes out of hyperspace and it's just like...
I know he has like a herd of them, like, and they like attack the cruiser. Oh my gosh,
yeah. He's just like,
that would have been like one of the most
years, but
that would have been like such a ridiculous moment. I would have been like,
I would have hated that actually.
I would have hated that too.
Thanks, I hate it.
But the thought sounds hilarious.
It was really cool seeing Boba Fett finally kick some butt, and
yeah,
it was like it was. Carnage I've never seen in Star Wars.
It was really cool.
Robert Rodriguez did that episode. He's known for the Spy Kid movies. He has a recent movie on Netflix. We Are Heroes or something like that.
Yeah, I actually saw that. Like I saw that out of curiosity because of Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
I've never even seen Shark Boy and Lava Girl, so I wasn't curious.
Yeah, no, I did like way back when. Because, okay. I mean, like, I grew up on the Spy Kid movie, so that was, like, one of those type of movies. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, no, I agree.
Really well. He did the Boba Fett episode really well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it was cool finally seeing Boba Fett get in there and kick butt. I mean, he was a galaxy-renowned, bounty hunter. Mm-hmm. He had gained that somehow. And we finally got to see why he was so famous in that episode. I mean, he was really just going off on these stormtroopers.
Him and Fennec Shand. Using when he was fighting them, he was using like a
the Tusken Raider.
Yeah,
that
was so cool.
That like staff thing. Yeah,
I forget what the word was for it.
I forget. But he was going ham.
Like who knew?
It was really nice.
Those were as powerful.
It was really nice seeing Temuera Morrison back.
He looked so happy.
Yeah, he looks. He looks like he loved being back for that.
He's so quirky.
I think. Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, my boy took a page out of Chirrut Imwe's book. With that staff.
Oh yeah. I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good to see that. It was cool seeing his iconic ship, Slave One. It was cool actually seeing the inside.
Yeah, how it like shifted inside as like gravity changed. Yeah, that was really interesting. Like I love the way they did that. Because it was always weird to me because I had the toy growing up, but like it faced this way parallel to the window, like the main seats, but like the interior part. How would that work? So I thought that was cool. Finally, that they were able to show that how the mechanics of it would work.
Yeah, that was really cool. I like that.
A surprise to me was how good Bill Burr was.
Oh my gosh, dude!
Penultimate episode.
Yeah,
that might be my favorite performance of this season. You know what I'm saying? Like
he did great.
The episode as a whole was okay. But the fact that he had such a fantastic, he had such a bone-chilling moment where he talks to a former
Imperial
officer of his and is just seething with hatred. And you don't ever really get this in Star Wars because, while it's based off of some of the wars that we've seen and political struggles that we've seen in our real world, the idea that these are actual individuals with emotions is never really explored in the movies or shows. Sometimes it's explored in the books and stuff.
I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like
to the point where they're willing to go and shoot their former officer. I think that's...
Well, I was gonna, because before when we were talking about when you asked me what my favorite moment was, I was actually gonna say that was my favorite moment in this season, just because it brought the humanity into Star Wars. And I think that that's something that makes that first trilogy so interesting, because you see someone like Luke Skywalker who's complaining at the beginning, and and he's like arguing with his uncle, and it makes you feel like, oh, I could be here. Or the scene with Han where he's like, we're okay, how are you? Or, you know what I mean? Like, it's those moments that show the humanity, and like either in the comical ways or in those more serious ways that make this feel so real and that keep people coming back. And I thought that scene was really resonated with me, because I feel like this makes me sound like a bit of a psychopath, but when we were watching that and the guy was saying like they think that they want freedom but they want order, or whatever he was saying, I said to Dakota, I think I'd shoot that guy. Like, I said to Dakota, I think I'd shoot that guy. And then he just picked up the gun and shot him, and I was like,
no.
What would you do if you were there? I think I would have did the same exact thing. And then at the end, when he's flying away and he shot and blew up the whole thing, and he was a freaking hero. Yeah. He was a hero to them because they're on the side. You know what I mean? It was just interesting because you see them coming in and they're being applauded by the enemy. And then when they're leaving, he does this freaking amazing shot. And then he gets redemption.
Yeah, man, that was such a good...
And it just shows you, like, you could be the hero depending on which side of the story you're on.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was going to bring that episode up. I thought that Bill Burr did a fantastic job. And in this episode, Mando, he has his helmet off for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so you see more of his reaction. And during that exchange, you know that Mando saw that tension building up. You see the look on his face. He's kind of like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, he knew this guy wanted to shoot him. And it was crazy. Yeah, like that conversation, pretty much like, so many people died. It was like during like an operation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he just
I think it was during that operation that they show in Battlefront 2.
Yeah, it's the one on
oh my gosh.
Burning Con. It was the operation on Burning Con. Yeah.
And they showed in Battlefront 2. And so it's crazy that they brought that up. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I actually remember that. And it's crazy, because a lot of stormtroopers died during that.
All heroes of the Empire.
Oh God, that guy is such a good actor.
And the villain there was a fantastic actor too. I recently watched. I recently watched a bunch of times Batman Begins because I was making that video, and Joe Chill, the guy who killed Batman's parents, was the same actor that played the Imperial officer. So he's so good at playing.
He's
bad
so
guys.
evil. Yeah.
He's so evil.
Like, he's so good at it. And then too, that scene was my favorite too, because you see. That's the moment when Din Djarin realizes that he's willing to sacrifice
everything.
His beliefs,
his
anything to protect Grogu. Like, that's his kid. And it shows you, if you have a kid, you're willing to do anything to protect them.
Absolutely.
And didn't, like, that moment that Bill Burr's like character shot the Imperial officer, didn't Din Djarin like kind of react like like kind of like like he knew it was coming, but like he was also kind of like shocked in that moment. I like how he handed the helmet back to Mando, pretty much. It's just essentially saying like, I didn't see anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, serious bro code there. What I loved about Pedro Pascal's performance was, being in the mind of this character. Or just being in the suit, being in the helmet, you need to physically turn your head to see things. And considering the fact that this is a guy who's been wearing this for maybe, 25 years, at least, 20, or maybe 30 years at this point, this helmet, the fact that he's never taken it off in front of other people, he's wearing it, most 24/7, it kind of blows my mind how good of an actor he is with the helmet off, because he still would, if you're wearing a helmet for 30 years and then you take it off, you'd still make movements the same way, and if you look closely at that scene, he still moves his entire body to see around him like he would with a helmet on. It's super cool.
That's a good minor detail.
Yeah, it's
that's a good minor detail that if you're not paying attention, you'll miss.
But it's subconscious too. It's subconscious. It's like it makes sense why he's so rigid, because he's so used to having this guard up and these small visors that you have to like look around.
Right, and it's really cool that they made that decision to do that. To kind of like to make him do that, because it would make sense that even though he has this helmet off, that he would be moving his whole body instead of it just being naturally for him to just look with his neck. I know that as a whole, you might have not been too impressed by it, but I thought that it was a pretty good episode. Like even outside of the great acting, I mean, there was some pretty cool action also.
Yeah, I actually loved that episode. Yeah. It almost reminded me of Band of Brothers a bit.
I want to
just said it's like a war story,
I want to take back what I said, where I was just like, it's not even that great of an episode. It is actually probably my second favorite episode of season 2. So I'm taking that back. But,
I see through the lies.
Go ahead. Well, you were saying it's like Band of Brothers?
Yeah, it just kind of reminded me of that. It's like you start in these times of peril, you start seeing the humanity in each other. You start seeing that you're united, even if you have your differences. Yeah, your different backgrounds. It's kind of like, the beginning where you're getting to know the characters a bit, which I need to rewatch Band of Brothers because it's so good. But
yeah,
it's a war story, and just seeing his redemption arc just reminded me of that, and I loved it. And I kind of like that Bill Burr isn't a huge Star Wars fan. I like that he was almost kind of playing himself in a Star Wars world, because I think it makes it more approachable for people too that aren't Star Wars fans. Like I made my family watch that episode too, and they were pretty into it.
Yeah,
he has good range, because I mean he's a comedian.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is really showing the range that he has.
I did not expect that performance in him.
Yeah, he was
he killed it. He really knocked it out of the park.
All right, we should talk about the final episode.
Yeah,
at this point,
we should talk
about the final episode. What are your overall thoughts, Jen, on the final episode? Not necessarily the cameo, not necessarily Grogu leaving, but the entirety of it.
This is a lot. This is a lot to handle. I really liked it. I think people are kind of, like I said, too difficult to please at this point. If you didn't get emotional when seeing Luke's ship go in, and you were like, who else could it be? You know what I mean? It's like, come on, when you see that X-Wing go in, who else would this be? And then you see the green lightsaber. I've only been watching Star Wars for the past, decade? Maybe not even a full decade. And I got emotional seeing that. And it's like, then you see Luke just at his height. This is what everybody's always wanted. He got his own freaking hallway scene like he was a Daredevil. And people are still complaining. And it's like depressing. Like nobody's freaking happy these days. Like I just want people to love Star Wars. Just love it and enjoy it. I thought the scene with Din and Grogu at the end where he took off his helmet and then Grogu touched his face, if you think about it, that guy hasn't physically been touched in so long since his childhood. How emotional that was for him. Imagine not feeling human touch or just compassion.
That was a beautiful
physical moment. Senses,
Yeah.
I just thought wow, that was so emotional. I thought it was a fantastic episode. I loved it, and I don't understand the haters. I don't get it.
Anthony, where do you stand with the episode?
I think it was a great episode. I mean, it really took you on a roller coaster of emotion, this episode.
Yeah, definitely.
It was very jarring. It was super action packed. I loved the A-Force moment that they had in there with the
all-female cast.
Bo-Katan, Fennec Shand, Cara Dune, and what was the other Mandalorian's name?
I forget her name, but she's played by Sasha Banks.
Yes.
They
totally that moment that they're
the guy Mandalorian from episode 3 of this season.
He was totally gone.
He was sick that day. He called out.
He called out. He didn't want to be a part of that. But yeah, no, it was really cool. I mean, just seeing them mow down all these stormtroopers and just getting that action. The duel between Moff Gideon and Din Djarin was pretty cool. And I mean, I personally enjoyed the Luke scene I thought it was really cool. It was cool seeing how much he's come along as not only a Force user, but a lightsaber dueler. Like, I mean, he was going off with that lightsaber.
The top of his craft, technically, in the galaxy right now.
My only gripe about it was that the CG was off for me. Yeah, the CG looked a little too video gamey for me, but it wasn't enough for me to like hate the episode. I still like enjoyed the episode a lot. Yeah, that moment with Grogu and Din Djarin where he took his helmet off, mind you, in a room filled with people. It wasn't just them two. Yeah. Filled with people spoke volumes that like he cared so much about Grogu, and like I mean, you saw the emotion in his eyes. Like, I mean, he was welling up. I mean, he was like tearing up because he knew that it was time. And that moment, where Grogu finally saw his face and he touched his face. I'm not gonna lie, like, I mean, it made me emotional. Like I shed a tear because it was such an emotional moment, and I think that they did such a great job in that.
Yeah. So I think performance-wise, everyone did a fantastic job in that episode. I enjoy, like you said, the A-Force type deal. I liked the fight between Mando and Moff Gideon. Finally, they got their showdown, and eventually Moff Gideon won, Mando won and took the Darksaber, which was interesting because this ended up being something that Bo-Katan didn't want Mando to do.
Oh, yeah.
She could have explained that much better, to be honest. Like, that did kind of piss me off. Because then afterwards, she's like, I need to win it. It's like, well, why didn't you say that? You just said the words, Moff Gideon is mine. I'm sure you had plenty of time to literally explain, hey, by the way, like, if it comes down to it, please let me win the lightsaber, because if not, then you're going to be the proper owner. I actually probably didn't want competition, but I don't know. I feel like she could have just mentioned that, because that was kind of a ruiner of her life.
What I didn't like, actually, I feel like the Dark Troopers were underused in the season. I enjoyed that they brought them into canon finally, but the fact that they were a threat up until they weren't kind of annoyed me. I liked how difficult it was to defeat them, and I kind of wanted to see some way out of that situation besides being saved by someone else. It wasn't like a God in the Machine type moment. It wasn't a Deus Ex Machina type moment where they were saved by Luke Skywalker, because you've been expecting a Jedi to show up for several episodes at this point.
Like it wasn't random.
Yeah, I mean, the quest from the final episode of season 1, where he has to bring this child to a Jedi, has been it's everything up to this point has been leading towards that. So his eventual showing up was warranted. But yeah, I wish the Dark Troopers had more to do, and they could have just as easily used the Death Troopers from Rogue One, and it would have been to similar effect. But as far as the Luke Skywalker thing, I loved the way it was handled. I love the fact that everyone stopped what they were doing to watch the little monitors.
Which makes me curious if those guys are like able to detect Force users or something, because they all just like stopped before they saw him.
Right.
Yeah, they did.
So we're talking about the Dark Troopers here. They stopped they stopped beating the doors in as soon as Luke Skywalker docked. I don't know if they were able to tell that there was a new life form on the ship and they're connected to the sensors on the ship, or if that's like a new thing that they're capable of doing, like they're the next level of Inquisitors or whatever, that they can sense out Force users or midichlorians or whatever, because they turned around and were like, where's this guy, I love that in his journey from docking the X-Wing all the way to going to the bridge of the ship, everyone is just in awe of watching this Jedi on screen, except for Moff Gideon. He freaks out. So I didn't.
He knows who that is. You could tell he knows exactly who that is.
And
that's why he tries to kill Grogu, because he's like, the last thing I need is another Jedi being trained.
That's one of the subtle performance things that I absolutely love about this episode, because that shows so much lore knowledge. You know, this guy has been looking for Grogu. He's probably already had dealings with Luke Skywalker in the past, because Luke Skywalker is actively looking for Force users.
Yeah.
And he probably realizes that this is the guy that brought the Empire and Darth Vader, the Emperor and Darth Vader, down to their knees. You know, he ended that reign of Sith Lords. I want to know more about Moff Gideon, because, and I think we will learn more eventually, but dude, he's such a good actor. Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah, he is.
As far as CGI goes, I was 100% removed from the moment as soon as Luke Skywalker took.
You aren't the only one removed. He removed me from the moment. I was all emotional. I'm all excited. My uncanny valley is huge. I do not see issues. Like, I could watch really, really, really bad CGI and not notice. I don't know what it is. I do not see it. But Dakota goes, wow, that looks horrible. And then I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, really? It does? And then I get disappointed.
For whatever reason, I get like really repulsed when I see very close to human CGI. I had it happen with pretty much every other time where they have like de-aged people in Star Wars, you know, between Rogue One and the other sequels. But this one was a prolonged thing, and it kind of, and it was a cheaper budget than the other ones, and I noticed it immediately, like as like something repulsive to my
I did
eyesight.
too.
So it kind of like instantly suspended, or it broke the suspension of my disbelief. And
if you weren't there, I could have watched that, and because I was like, is it that actor? I thought it was that guy,
Sebastian Stan.
Yeah,
no, it wasn't him.
I was like, is that him? Like, I genuinely don't see. I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, it might be my horrible vision. I have no idea.
It was cool that they brought Mark Hamill back, and that they used his likeness, and they used his voice, and they de-aged his voice. I love all that. I love the fact that they're willing to bring this actor back and give him his due. Because I think he thinks he was kind of gypped by dying early in The Last Jedi. He said as much in commentary and stuff. Although he likes the movie, apparently, he thinks that was the wrong choice for Luke Skywalker. Mm-hmm. I'm happy that we're finally getting this story that bridges those two stories, because we finally get to see Luke Skywalker in his prime, which is something that a lot of people really wanted. When Disney bought Star Wars, that's one of the first things people thought of was how crazy awesome, how strong is Luke Skywalker going to be at this point? Because that was one of the first things that they mentioned, was that Luke Skywalker, or Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford are coming back. And you think about these legacy characters, and you're like, wow, it's going to be so crazy seeing how powerful Luke is. Maybe Leia has a lightsaber. Han Solo is probably still scum of the galaxy. Blah blah blah. Now that we're finally able to, get past the sequels and see a little bit of the interim between the original trilogy and the sequels, I'm happy about it. So overall, very happy with the season. Little things I didn't like. The CGI, I didn't really care for the Dark Troopers. But overall, I don't think that there was any bad episodes this season. There were a couple in the first season that I just didn't like. I didn't like the one where they introduced Fennec Shand in Chapter 5, and I didn't like the prison episode in Chapter 6 of the first season. But in this season, I liked every episode. So for me, it was a huge step up.
No,
this was a good. They brought all these characters back.
Yeah, this was a good sequel.
Actually, just reminded me.
Right, they didn't bring back. I forget the actress's name, but she played Nymphadora Tonks in Order of the Phoenix and stuff. With that being said, any final remarks on Mandalorian season 2?
Well, we have to cancel Grogu because he wanted to start a genocide. So now that's why they cut him out at the end of the season.
Oh, actually, we should really briefly talk about the possibilities of what that means. Luke Skywalker took Grogu at the end. So Din Djarin and Grogu are currently parted, willingly at this point. Do we think that Grogu will be a part of Season 3? And if so, a large part or a small part? Anthony, go.
I think that there's a possibility that we won't see Grogu in Season 3.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that there's a possibility. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think that there's a possibility that that we won't see that. I know that there's plans for these new series that are coming out, that there's going to be, they're planning a crossover event for these like shows.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I'm thinking that they're gonna probably like focus on maybe that. I mean, maybe Din Djarin comes across Grogu and Luke at some point next season. I feel like we won't see it though. I think that we've seen the last of Grogu, at least for now.
Okay. What about you, Jen?
I guess I hadn't really considered that possibility. I just kind of thought that they'd link up for some reason. I wonder if there's going to be a time jump, actually.
Probably. There might be.
In between. Because, I mean, we have to get Grogu out of there before Kylo. I mean, that's a bit of a ways off.
Oh, yeah. The Kylo...
That's like quite a bit of a ways off.
Kylo destroying the temple will be like... It's like 15 or 16 years after this point. So he's got time to get out of there. But...
yeah, he does.
I'm of the opinion that the Mandalorian's popularity wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for Baby Yoda, or the Baby Yoda memes, or Grogu, whatever you want to call him. And I don't
it would be different.
I don't think that they can get away with a full season without him.
Yeah, I would be upset. I think I'd be pretty sad. I mean, the show is called The Mandalorian, but
well, the way I see it,
and why would they spend the time like giving you his background story of like, you know, all that, and then giving him a name, and then just ripping him away from our hearts? Like, why would they do that to us?
They clearly have plans for him. But what I'm saying is, the only episode we have in the entirety of Mandalorian without Grogu is the one with Bill Burr shooting the Imperial officer. It was a great episode, which shows us that he doesn't need to be in the show for there to be good episodes. But I think Disney understands that Grogu is probably the most profitable single character that they've ever had since Darth Vader, because everyone, you know, wants a little cute Baby Yoda figurine child.
Grogu is the key to all of this.
Grogu is the key to all this. I think that we'll end up seeing Grogu again. If not season finale, somewhere in the middle of the season, something will happen where Mandalorian needs to help protect this child or whatever. I don't know what help Luke Skywalker needs, considering what he did in the finale, but we will see. All right, with that, I think we should close this out because we're coming in on 1 hour and 40 minutes on our end.
Yeah, that season was strong. It was a strong season. I think it was a great upgrade from the first season. The first season, I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, there were some of those episodes that I felt weren't as strong, but I didn't hate any of the episodes. But this season, I didn't feel like there were any episodes that were weak.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they all kind of served a purpose. So,
yeah. What about you, Jen?
I really liked it. Yeah, like I said, it gave my life meaning. And now what?
Now what?
Now what? What do I do now?
We have to wait till WandaVision
I
comes.
did this. I did Dairy Girls, and I'm literally... I have nothing left to live for.
Oh yeah, we have the Book of Boba Fett coming. We won't talk about too much of that, but it is fun that they have so much in the works. You know, they have the Rangers of the New Republic. We have the Ahsoka series. We have Book of Boba Fett coming, all spinning off of Mandalorian. So several backdoor pilots from this one season, which I'm very happy about. All right, with that, Anthony, you want to close us out?
Before that, Jen, what happened to your boy Bib Fortuna? Like, he got big. Like, what happened?
He got huge.
He got huge.
Boy.
Yeah, it's only been 5 years since the Return of the Jedi, and this guy's blown up.
It was,
it is realistic. It really do be like that sometimes. You know, there's no body shaming here.
And he didn't last. He died instantly.
Boba!
I just want to see Salacious Crumb. That's my real boy. That's my real boy, but I don't know their lifespan, so
yeah, we don't know.
Oh my gosh. Let's end this. Thank you for joining us on our conversation on The Mandalorian Season 2. It's been fun. It's always great having a conversation with you, Dakota, and it's always great to have Jen join us when she's available. As usual, thank you guys for reaching out to us on Twitter. And for those of you who have not followed us on Twitter, we are active. We are at PGeekology. And on Instagram, we are at Project Geekology. And on both, we post releases, we post updates, we keep everybody in the know of what's going on with us and what we are going to be bringing out to you guys. And
we'll have our links in the show notes for you guys to click on, so you don't have to search that out.
And thank you to those who have been leaving us reviews, those glowing reviews. It's great reading those. And for those of you who haven't left any reviews to us, if you enjoy the show, please leave us a review. It really helps us out a lot. Not only does it help us out in knowing that we are bringing out content that you all like, but it also helps us out on the various platforms that we're on, because it brings us up in the rankings. And so those of you who have already done it, thank you so much. Those of you who have not, if you want to help us out, we would greatly appreciate that, and we would love to read more of these reviews as they come to us, but we can't read any reviews if we don't have any. No reviews, no read. But yeah, no, thank you once again for those of you who come weekly and listen to our podcast, because the listens do help out a lot too. And with that being said, this episode's over. I hope you all have a safe week, and I hope that you join us for our next episode on the Avatar The Last Airbender spoiler edition.
All right.
Goodbye, y'all.
Bye.